Without further ado, David.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, first off, I'm seeing all the people in the chat here from all over the country. It's so cool to have so many influencers be able to hop on these calls and be able to touch pretty much anywhere we want to. This is a really cool one for me. I've known Carolyn here for 4 years now. I've been with her at the Capitol when she is literally going nonstop from the subway and back underground there, from the house back to the office and press conferences. And when she's in New York, she's nonstop there. She's one of the most probably legendary members of Congress we have, definitely one of the most prolific in history. And who of everybody out there right now, I think that she's probably actually gotten more done than just about all the other members, I think. She's passed hundreds of bills. There's had 14 presidential bill signings. She's a deal maker and she gets things done. Without further ado here, I have the unstoppable CBM, Carolyn Maloney here. If she's on the screen here, I see DemCast.
Deserve that introduction, but that was very kind of you. But I'm really happy today about the Supreme Court. We finally got some good news out of the Supreme Court, and I would say the persistence of the Democrats paid off by continually pushing to get the documents, and it's an important step towards documenting what actually happened on January 6th. I think it'll take us probably a long time to get the documents. They'll still figure out how to delay it a bit, but it looks like we're going to get them before the midterm elections. So that is very important. And only one dissent, and that was Clarence Thomas. It was actually a surprising decision from this court, which has not been favorable towards transparency and really democratic goals. So I'm happy about that. That's a good thing to tweet about.
Yeah, that's huge news, and that broke right as we were getting ready to get on here. About a half hour ago or so. So that was actually going to be the first thing that I was going to bring up to you was, what did you think about that? But I see you smiling. Well, getting into it, there's a lot that you've done, and I'm going to get into accomplishments and favorite bills and everything else. And at the end of this, everybody, I'm going to give everybody a chance here to ask a couple questions, and I'll read those off from the chat box here. I guess the first thing is we have a Democratic agenda. We have a lot of activists on the call here that are always looking for content and looking for something to say and how to say it. What's the Democratic agenda right now? Like, what would you say the top three biggest things that we're trying to do are, and how can we amplify that?
Well, we had a leadership meeting this morning, and there are three really big items that we have to get done before February 18th. February 18th is the date where we run out of money and the government's going to close down if we don't reauthorize it. So the two choices is an omnibus bill that the Democrats are putting forward. We passed it in the House. It has 12 spending bills that have been carefully crafted by the Appropriations Committee, headed by Rosa DeLauro. She's leading that fight, and we've got to figure out how to get it through the Senate. Now, what you always have to look for in government is what is the fallback position. The fallback position, which we don't want, is a continuing resolution, which will continue it at Republican spending levels. They've been rolling over a continuing resolution, but we'll be pushing for that omnibus bill. Obviously, voting rights. The voting rights are what we're fighting for, and I'm for just abolishing the filibuster. But it just, at the very least, we should have a carve out from the filibuster for this important right, the voting rights bill. And we have two bills. One is HR 1 with many voting rights items in it. And then what we call the John Lewis bill, which really is preserving the rights that we gained really under President Johnson in those years with Martin Luther King. They're rolling them back. So those two bills are must-pass bills. You don't have a democracy if you don't have protected voting rights. And then, of course, the Build Back Better bill. And that's an important bill. And I think that we're all frustrated about it, but we have to keep our messaging, I would say, positive, because Democrats have accomplished a great deal that we never would have accomplished without President Biden, a Democratic majority in the House and in the Senate. And that is the American Rescue Plan, which helped create 6 million new jobs, more than any other president in that short time period. Also, cutting poverty in half with a child tax credit for our young people. And the American Rescue Plan put billions of dollars into our cities and tribes and states and counties. In New York, we were on the verge of closing down the MTA, firing all the teachers, firing all the public workers because we didn't have the money. But that infusion allowed us to continue going and build back our economy. So there's a lot of things that we've done. And don't forget the infrastructure bill, $1.6 trillion that we're putting out for our roads, bridges. In New York, I built the only subway that's been built since I've been in Congress, the 2nd Avenue subway, the first phase of it. And there's money in there to go up into Harlem and include many other neighborhoods in it. So there's a lot that we've done that I think is positive, and there's a big positive message. And who's halting there's all this talk about the 2 Democrats that are stopping Build Back Better, but it's really the Republican Party. Not a single Republican voted for the rescue plan or the voting rights bills or many of the other bills that we've been working on.
So you talked about voting rights there, and by all intents and purposes of what we're seeing on online, it looks like we're not going to be able to get that passed. How are you feeling on the voting rights bill, and what do you think we should be doing?
Well, I think that change doesn't come easy, but it will come if you never give up and you keep pushing for the right thing. It may take you several years or even many years, but just never give up. If we can't move HR 1, the For the People Act, or the HR 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, then I would expect that we would bust it up into smaller pieces and try to move them. In these bills, it's got a lot of bills in it. For example, I have one of my bills made it into the HR 1, and it's called the Vote by Mail Tracking Act. And it's a very common sense thing. When they talk about absentee ballots, half the time in my office was tracking or trying to track and let people know that their ballot was at the Board of Elections, that it was being counted or that it had been counted. What this would do is put a barcode on federal elections. Like we can track these packages all over the world. Why can't we track a ballot going from someone's home to the Board of Elections in a city or state? So I think that's a common sense bill, but it has a lot of other things in it. It would make voting days a national holiday so that people could all vote, which I think is common sense, and would really federalize early voting so that everybody can be voting early. We doubled the amount of people voting in New York with early voting because so many people, you can't really, the lines were so long, went so long into the night, they would cut people off, they weren't able to vote. So early voting is critical. So it's got a lot of things in there. And plus it takes out these anti-voting rights acts that some of these states are passing. My favorite is that you can't give anybody in a line, even if an elderly person is fainting, a bottle of water or anything. I mean, just these ridiculous things that they're putting there to make it more difficult to vote. But if there was a carve out personally, I think we should get rid of the filibuster altogether. Let's go back to a majority vote. But if it's there, and sometimes I wonder if they've made some kind of deal, because we have gotten some things through, some appointments, judges, really the infrastructure bill. It's the first time we've passed an infrastructure bill since I've been in Congress. Everybody says they're for it. We never passed it. We finally passed it. And we had needed Republican votes to do it. So I wonder where they came from, with that, whatever. I shouldn't talk like that. Anyway, if you're going to have, we should have a carve out. Simply put, we should have a carve out from the filibuster for something as important as voting rights, period.
Yep. And then for the activists on the call here and pushing the agenda, what you're saying is the omnibus spending bill, Build Back Better, and voting rights. So those are the three things that we should be pushing hardest.
Those are goals of the Democratic Party to accomplish. Now, through that, we are going to be passing bills to help Puerto Rico, to remove the Oversight Board. We're going to be passing bills for veterans. I have a postal reform bill that may be passed that would put the post office on more firm financial footing. But these are really human rights, civil rights, core values and big bills that we have to get through. And that's our main focus. But also the February 18th date. Now, that week is supposed to be what we call a district work period. That means we're not supposed to be in Washington that week. It starts, I think, February 14th, and Thursday, I think, is February 18th. That's when the government will close down. I predict we will be in Washington that week, and we will be fighting up to the end to try to get the omnibus through, or parts of it. So those are big items that we're looking at, but we're doing all the other stuff too, and conducting the work of the Congress. For example, I had 4.5 hours of hearing this today on waste, fraud, and abuse in the Pentagon. Surprise. And we had TransDigm in, a company that we called to give back all of the overcharges that they made. They had this model where they buy up all these sole source contracts, sole source businesses. And when the military needs a spare part, they charge $4,000, $5,000 more than what it costs. And they won't tell the contracting officers what it costs. So I put a bill in called Fair Pricing and Cost Transparency. They won't even tell you what it costs. So for example, they would have a piece for the F-16, and it might cost $100, and they charge $7,000 for it. Even Senator Grassley came out, a Republican senator, blasting them for their actions. It's very hard to pass something in a Congress like ours, which is so divided, really. So you need Republican support. So just you need. Personally, what I'm going to do next week is reach out to him and see if he'll go on my fair pricing and cost transparency bill. If he goes on it, then that will put pressure on the Republicans in the House to go on it. And I might have a shot at passing another bill that could save the country hundreds of millions of dollars by just forcing companies to tell the contracting officers exactly how much it costs, so that they can't gouge the pricing.
And you have another bill coming up next week for banking and overdrafts, right? That's next week?
No, but one of the bills that I authored that helps millions of people, including probably everybody on this call, I passed something called the CARD Act, which was the Credit Card Holders' Bill of Rights. And this cracked down on unfair, deceptive practices of the banking industry. And according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Pew Foundation, this bill alone that I authored saves you, the consumer, over $16 billion, as in B, dollars a year, keeping the money in your pockets, not in the bank's pockets. I call it the Maloney stimulus package because it really puts money back in the economy. I think I probably put more money back in the economy than Trump's tax cuts, because this really helped working men and women. And I have another bill that builds on this, and it's the overdraft bill, and it really hurts low-income people. And we call it the $25 cup of coffee, because they manipulate the number of checks you write, expenditures that you have, and put your mortgage or your rent first, pushing you in an overdraft. And every time there's an overdraft, there's a charge of $35. So you could go to Starbucks and have a cup of coffee, and it would end up costing you $35. And they make billions off of this. And I have a bill in called the Overdraft Protection Act for consumers. And it's getting some traction. Capital One came out and said they were going to do it because it was the right thing to do. And I think Bank of America did. And I think if you want to see if you can pass a bill, see what the influence of this is, I'm offering to sort of come back on next week and sort of put the arguments for it, against it, what the bill number is. I'll put in a letter to Waters to have a hearing on it and see if we can pass a bill and see what the influence is of moving that bill. It's something that affects everyone. Everybody's got a credit card. And I think the core part of the bill is that it puts the decision to have an overdraft protection in the consumer's hands. Right now, the banks just put you in it. This would mean that you, the consumer, would have to say, yes, I want the overdraft protection. I can't imagine anybody saying they want it, because every time you write a check after you've overdrawn your account, which they force you into by putting your high expenditures first, it really, I had one friend who spent $10,000 in overdraft fees one year. They catch you in sort of a never-ending cycle of debt. And I think it's an important bill. The industry hates it usually, but some of them are seeing that writing on the wall that it's probably going to pass soon. With your help.
I definitely think that everybody on this call will back you up on that one and amplify it. I want to get into some questions in a second, but the last thing I want to ask you is, of all the bills you passed and all the presidential signings and everything, like, what would you say the ones you're most proud of, the ones you feel accomplished the most?
Well, it's hard to say, because presidential bill signings are usually for what are, landmark bills. I did one on the use of DNA to convict rapists and get them behind bars. It's been called the most important anti-rape bill ever. A lot of them aren't really something. I passed a bill last year on, and it was called beneficial ownership. And right now it would allow law enforcement to go behind LLCs to see who really owns it. A lot of people say it's the most important anti-money laundering bill in the past 30 years. It was very, very hard to pass. And I get more compliments on really something I passed called the 9/11 Health and Compensation Bill that gave health care and support to our 9/11 heroes and heroines. People come up and say it saved my life and are very appreciative. But I think the Credit Card Bill of Rights really affects every single person. And they were so abusive. I couldn't even go to the grocery store, go down to the floor of Congress without people coming up with outrageous abuses from the banking industry, financial institutions that were really ripping them off, changing their rules in order to put another fee on them. It was just out of control. And I think that really affects so many people's lives. What I love about my work is that you can pass a bill and you may never know the people that it helps, but it can help millions of people and really help, I think it helped even the financial services industry, because everybody was so pissed off at them. I don't know why anybody had a bank account, the way they were abusing it and running up fees on everything. So I think that's a really, really important bill. But all of them are important in their own way. And it's thrilling to be able to pass a bill that you won't really know who or talk to everybody it's helping, but that you know that it has made life better or easier for people. And I think the overdraft bill is the same, that passing that will help, particularly low-income people who are living from paycheck to paycheck and overdrawing their accounts, and they abuse it. They find them, they get them on that program, and they catch them in just a never-ending cycle of debt. I remember when I passed the Credit Card Bill of Rights, I met some consumer, he had bought a car, and the interest rates kept going up. They say, this card will be, at 2%, and it goes to 8%, then it goes to 22%. And he'd already paid for the car, but he still had thousands and thousands of dollars of interest payments he needed, where they had caught him in this cycle of debt. It's very, very abusive. And I think that it's time to pass the overdraft bill. And just ask people on the call how many of them have been hit by an overdraft charge. I know have.
Yeah. Well, if you guys are in the chat right now, two things. I mean, if you've been hit, I just got DemCast that says everyone, Congresswoman. But the second thing is,
let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of it. We have a goal.
Yeah, we have a goal. We have a quorum here. And if anybody has any questions too, just feel free to put it in the Q&A section up on the top end, and I'll get her to answer a couple of them there. The last thing I have for you is, for the accomplishments, in the last 12 months, especially through the infrastructure bill, COVID relief and everything else, like what have you been able to get done for New York?
Oh, well, this I would say what I've been able to be done for New York has been totally a Democratic effort with a Democratic president. And I think all of us are suffering from COVID. And I think Joe Biden got in there and got the testing out there, the vaccines out there. And now I think they just launched yesterday a portal in which households can order up to 4 free at-home COVID-19 tests. I think we've got to get that out to people so that they know about it. And we are having a hearing on Thursday with the COVID subcommittee, which is chaired by Chairman Clyburn of my committee. And it's going to have all the several governors. It's going to have Polis in from Colorado and Inslee from Washington State. And I think the governor of Puerto Rico, just on best practices and what worked. And I think that we have a good story to tell on how we've responded to COVID-19 and taking it seriously. By the way, at one of our hearings, we had Fauci in for the first time, who told the country how serious it was, the virus, and it was called the turning point there. So in terms of New York, we saved New York with the American Rescue Plan. Really well over $100 billion came into New York, and I'd say every big city, not only with independent checks that went with the surplus for the Social Security. We covered gig workers, artists, and temporary workers for the first time. The PPP program that helped our small businesses keep their doors open, and all of the EDL program for our small businesses, all of the efforts that we rolled out. And then I think all of that helped create 6 million jobs. It helped us rebound. And of course, the child care tax credit has cut the poverty in half. Now it expires now, we have to extend it in the Build Back Better bill, or extend it as an individual bill. I think you'll see all of us fighting hard to get the whole package through. If we can't get it through, I think you'll see it divided into smaller packages and trying to put the pieces together. I call it the fragile flower of consensus, which is 215 votes. I have a lot of respect for anything that can get through the United States Congress.
That's a really good answer. We got a couple questions in here. One of them is on climate. Is there something that Biden can do to declare a climate emergency to jumpstart the green economy?
Well, my committee is working on a Green New Deal hearing that's coming up. And on climate, he seriously treated it for the first time in the Build Back Better bill. It had over $555 billion in it going to renewable energy, projects, ways to move forward to a green environment. For one example, in my committee, we did a bill that would go towards electric vehicles and make the post office electric, and use the offices, of which there are over 3,000 across the country, mainly in rural areas, as charging centers. So they would charge the post office trucks at night, but they'd be open to the public, and build the infrastructure of America so that we have charging stations everywhere so we can go to electric. Their testimony that one of the biggest polluters that is causing the climate change is the fossil fuel industry. You can look this up on my website of the Oversight Committee, but I had the first hearing in history that hauled in the heads of the 4 big, fossil fuel companies, Exxon, et cetera, et cetera. and where they all confessed that it was, in fact, the fossil fuel was contributing to they were lying about it before and saying it wasn't a problem, that climate change wasn't a problem. And I'm having another hearing in February, I think February maybe 14th, I don't know the exact date, where we are going to look at what they're promising that they're doing in terms of lowering. This would be a great thing to get behind. They're all promising that they're lowering their fossil fuel emissions, but we have whistleblowers and others that saying that they are not, and that they're not keeping their promise. And so it's to hold them accountable for their role, not only in creating the problem, but their role that they have to take now to help us to solve it by cutting down on fossil fuel emissions. And of course, the best way to do that is to go to electric cars. I also passed a bill out of committee that I have jurisdiction over the federal government, not the private sector. It requires every agency to come forward with a plan of how they're going to green their agency, their building. Just yesterday, I was at a press conference with Mayor Adams on what they're calling it winter outing for New York, and it's about, come back to New York with special deals in restaurants, etc. But in the building, they were telling me that they greened the building and put in new lighting and new windows and all these kind of things to make it more fuel efficient. And they're saying that everything that they spent, they made the money back. They're saving gobs of money because they made the building a green building. We should take that and push it out across the country, and all of our buildings, all our renovations should be green. Those are some of the things we're doing on the green economy. I was very excited about Build Back Better for many, many things, but it was a serious movement towards greening America and implementing the Green New Deal.
That's really good. I guess the last question here, I'm in the Q&A. Anita here is asking, why will it take a long time to get Trump's documents to the House?
I'm just saying that, they usually, I don't know, I hope they give them tomorrow. But one of the things that my committee works on is getting documents. In fact, we got the documents from DOJ, and it took us a year or two to get these documents out of them. But these documents were on January 6th, and it showed that Trump called the head of DOJ. I'm not exaggerating. It was in real hand notes. You rarely get anything like this on a president, but particularly notes written by the head of DOJ or the acting head of DOJ, and where Trump called him and said, say that this election was stolen. And he said, well, we don't have any proof that the election was stolen. And then they say, well, he said to them, well, say it anyway. Clear cut caught him. But we have been pushing to get documents, his January 6th documents and his financial documents, which we still haven't gotten. We've been pushing for it. Oh my God. In court, I've been in court, and a lot of us have been in court pushing this release of documents. It's not easy. But now that we've got it, Supreme Court has spoken. We'll be trying to get them tomorrow. But as I said, they usually figure out some way to drag their feet. We'll see. I hope the Supreme Court spoke and he'll cooperate, but I haven't seen him cooperate on anything. So I think he'll say he lost. I don't know what he's going to do. I shouldn't say or surmise, but I think he will. Well, let's watch it. Let's talk and talk with each other. And David Yankovic, I'll keep him informed. We're trying to get the documents. We'll see. Do they turn them over tomorrow? We're going to be asking for them, but I predict that they'll come up with some problem or blah, blah, blah. And we'll have to just push harder. But
so last thing for you here, and then I'll turn it over to DemCast again. But in the chat room, Elisa here said, why isn't the mainstream media talking about all these accomplishments? We need to be getting out the good word. So why do you think that that we're not able to get this out?
They don't like to talk about accomplishments. They just like to criticize. And I think as Democrats, we have a lot to be proud of. And I think we should stop whining and talk about our accomplishments. We're going into a midterm election. We have a president who has produced. He's not the one holding it back. It's the Republicans that are holding it back. So I think we have a lot. Cutting child poverty in half, I think, is a great accomplishment. Creating 6 million jobs is a great accomplishment. Getting money to our tribes, our cities, and our states is a great accomplishment. And I'm taking that task myself. In March, I'm having a hearing on what did we accomplish with the bill back, and bring in cities, states, tribes in to tell the story of what it meant to their localities. I think we have to, since the press is not going to do it, we have to work overtime to try to get the message out that Democrats have produced. You know, it's never enough, and we need to keep fighting harder. But who's holding up voting rights? It's not Democrats. You know, who's holding up the omnibus bill? It's not Democrats. And who held up Build Back Better? They had 2 Democrats, that's true, but it was all, no Republican was for it. So they're the ones halting it, and there have been positive things that we have been able to do.
Well, that's a good way to end this. It's stay positive, keep amplifying our accomplishments. You know what? And damn it, just be proud to be Democrats. You know, we're getting a lot done. Biden's economy, it's the best it's been in 50 years. You know, I mean, what you're doing in New York City, I mean, it's just unbelievable. So thank you so much. Thank you, DemCast, for, you know, having the Congresswoman on and let me, you know, talk with her here. And, you know, if you guys are out there, follow the Congresswoman and help her. You know, she wants to come back and talk about the overdraft bill. So we'll try to, you know, set something up there. But thank you so much, Congresswoman Maloney, and we all love you here.
Well, thank you, David. Let me just ask the team, do you want me to come back on the overdraft bill?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I think if we all get together, we can first push a hearing and then push a vote on it. And I think one thing that's unique about it is it affects so many people. Everybody has an overdraft charge. You know, everybody they trick in or just slip. Some of the banks just put them in without even telling you. They put you in the overdraft program. You have to get out. Anyway, it was great talking to you. I know you have more work to do. I look forward to coming back next week, and let's celebrate this Supreme Court decision. We should all be tweeting about it.
All right. Thanks, Congresswoman.
Thank you so much. All right. So great. So great to have her on. David, thank you so much for hosting that conversation and asking all those great questions. Yeah, we look forward to having her back.
Yeah, and thank you guys. You know, I mean, obviously you guys know I love you, and you know, DemCast is amazing, but this forum here, it's something that it's very unique to be able to get members to come in and give you the messaging and talk about what they're doing and everything else, and then have, you know, everybody go and amplify it and do that. And it's amazing. You guys know that I'm a big fan, and obviously I advise you too, so full disclosure, but yeah, so everybody, thank you so much, and keep up the good work, and I appreciate you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
Yep. All right. Well, okay. So awesome. Great to hear from the Congresswoman. Always exciting to have somebody from one of our elected officials come and join us for a conversation. Like many of you, I was paying very close attention to the C-SPAN and the PBS and all the streaming things today, trying to track all of the comings and goings of the debate in the Senate about voting rights. So that's what we want to talk about for the rest of the time. Jamie, why don't you go ahead and just dive in and give us an update?
Yeah, so Schumer is finishing up his speeches on the floor, and then we will move to vote. Of course, we're expecting all 50 Democrats to vote for it, and no Republicans. And then Schumer will move to a rule change vote, which right now what he's proposing is just a talking filibuster specifically for this bill and this bill only. So it's not a permanent rule change. It is only for this one bill. So once everybody has talked as much as they want, offered amendments, then it's an up and down vote with 51 needed to pass. Right now, neither Sinema or Manchin are supporting that. We'll see what happens maybe after they listen to Reverend Warnock tonight, because damn, if you haven't seen his videos, go find them on Twitter.
Yeah, it was a hell of a speech.
Yeah. So if they block ending debate, means we can keep calling this up over and over again. They can also call it very specific portions of the bill, very popular portions, making Election Day a national holiday, gerrymandering, dark money. So Sheldon Whitehouse had a great thread on this, and I will try to drop it in for everybody. So this vote will probably take the next couple of hours. But as long as Manchin and Sinema don't vote with the Republicans to table the bill is still alive, and they can keep bringing this up now.
I really wanted to point out what Senator Warnock said in his speech today, that you cannot remember Martin Luther King Jr. and dismember his legacy at the same time. You don't get to argue both sides. And that he said, I will not sit quietly while some make Dr. King a victim of identity theft. I thought that was just, he's such a great speaker. And I really thought that was a great comment. I was on the phone with Nancy Pelosi, not me personally, I was on a call that Nancy Pelosi was having today, and I wanted to bring up some points that she made. She had Rep. Sarbanes on, who has worked on these voting rights bills for a long time. And Rep. Sarbanes said that they've been working since 2018 on protecting democracy. They've actually passed this bill 5 different times in the House. Twice on the freedom to vote, twice on the John Lewis, and then again with them combined. And that Senator Schumer is going to basically force the senators to put their vote on the record for this bill. And so, number one, if it obviously doesn't pass, that we have something to show everybody that that's what they've done. But she said, if you guys watched CNN over the weekend or last week, they have declared this bill dead 1 million times.
Yep.
And
they declared infrastructure dead. They declared the ACA dead. Everything is dead according to mainstream media. Don't listen.
But what Speaker Pelosi said was that when the pundits call it dead, that we don't listen, that the grassroots is what's driving the resurrection every time that the pundits declare it dead. And so, I think the people here on this call, and if you're listening on Facebook or later on YouTube, what you have to know is that you're making a difference, a huge difference in keeping these bills on the forefront. I think Elise had a question about why the media doesn't cover good news. It's because they have no incentive to do that. They're selling advertisement. They're reporting, what they want to report, but it's not their job to sell what we've done. And so we have to do that. The candidates have to do that. The elected people have to do it, and the grassroots have to do it. We have to tell people what it made a difference to us.
I was on a call yesterday with Cliff Albright with Black Voters Matter. And this was before he was arrested again yesterday. And I think he put it the best. This bill's not dead until we say it's dead.
You're here.
Yep. And there has never been such a huge grassroots movement on a bill since the Civil Rights Act of 1965. This is how much momentum there is behind this bill. And the big difference now is we're having all these little tiny rallies instead of it just all focused in the South. So you're not seeing the massive people, but there were 100 rallies just on Martin Luther King Day. There were there were 500 on January 6th. This is all for voting rights in the last couple of weeks. Hundreds of thousands of people have turned out for these.
Well, Rep. Sarbanes also said that we can't afford to become cynical. That they keep bringing this up and it's not going anywhere, that there are people that are struggling to meet their needs out there. And the only way we can ensure that they have their rights is that we're fighting for them. And so we can't let, roadblocks or obstacles keep us from being focused on reaching that. He mentioned the Black Caucus sat in on most of the Senate debates today, putting a little bit of pressure on the orators that we had. And I thought just one great thing that he said was that all of these voter suppression laws that are being passed across the country, do you know that they're being passed with a simple majority? So we need a simple majority to pass voter rights.
And it's not even that, because in states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, it's only because we have a Democratic governor that some of these maps and laws have not been passed. And in states like Michigan, they're actually trying to go around the veto of the governor, even though they have the slimmest of majorities.
Yep, it's one big power grab, and yeah. So I mean, I appreciate that Rep. Sarbanes went there, Lori. That's kind of where I ended. I ended up last night. I was feeling pretty dejected after the day of speeches and stuff, and just feeling like, oh man, this is just gonna all face plant. And then I was like, you know what? I refuse to live in a country where Americans are prevented from exercising their power to vote because of geography, because of their skin color, because of their political affiliation. Virginia passed all kinds of great voter access laws, and they had great turnout. And look, Republicans won. And you know what? I say that's great. That's how it should work, right? We want people to vote, and that's what the Democrats have been. I mean, it's not a great outcome. I'm not saying that. Heidi's like, Nick, but from a small d Democratic perspective, we want people to be able to exercise their power to vote, regardless of who they are, or what their affiliation is. So, we heard that from lots of senators today and yesterday, and on the Democratic side. So
we have a visitor who just wants to cheer everybody up. Yeah. Smile on your face. Apologize, he's a little obnoxious. DemCats.
Yeah, that's Lisa. Yeah, DemCats.
He's been keeping me company watching videos all day on C-SPAN.
And Jamie has been an absolute warrior the last couple of days. So please go in and use that our toolkit where we've peeled off a bunch of videos from these speeches and have a bunch of social media posts that you can post that fight the disinformation coming out of the Republican senators. Oh my God.
I know at least one of our graphics team is on here. I don't know if the rest are, but
they've been so amazing.
Huge shout out to the work that they have done, because I have been throwing them quotes and fact checking, and they have been turning it out. And then our wonderful Twitter lead has been getting them up on Twitter as fast as possible. So
yeah, this has been a crazy good team effort the last couple of days. So thank you everybody who's involved in. But then all that great work just goes to waste if people aren't going into the toolkit and sharing all that great content. So make sure you do that. And this is right now in this moment, other than like calling our senators' offices for the 12th time in 24 hours or whatever, this is what we can do. We can try and help manage the narrative in social media spaces. and push back on the Republican lies. So let's make sure that we continue to do that over the next few days. We can't let this issue die, and we just won't, because it's unacceptable to live in a country where people have unequal access to the ballot box. So
yeah, we're nearing the end of voting. We've got 50 yes, 46 no. So
so that means Manchin and Sinema voted with they didn't take out the shiv and
yeah.
Okay.
There were
Good.
some rumors earlier in the day that they might try to scuttle the bill.
Yeah.
And so that did not happen.
That's good.
Unless somehow we got a couple of Republicans on there.
Barbara says they did. Barbara's confirming that they did in the chat.
Yeah, so I said I couldn't imagine that. And it seems like this has been a moving part all day. And it does seem like Schumer is going to force the rules change vote tonight.
Ooh.
So don't turn off C-SPAN quite yet.
At least you'll have some company to watch.
Well,
yes, and he's up for adoption if anybody is interested.
no, Elisa, there is no sleep. Anybody else was up at 2 a.m. watching the ACA vote go down and watched McCain do his thumb down? I mean, that to me is where we're at right now, that moment.
But all of us have been up since 6 a.m. Pacific time, if not a little bit earlier today, because, we had to get a hashtag training. There was a war room call. So.
Well, I know when I get discouraged, usually I think about RBG, and how many times she went to bat for women's rights. Case after case after case, she lost. And she never said, okay, well, that's it. I'm giving up. I tried. She never did. And she kept at it until she won so many cases to set precedent that women could do things like have a credit card in their name. I mean, that has been in my lifetime. My mother couldn't get a credit card because women didn't get credit cards.
And when she was accepted at Harvard, it was on a documentary I'd watched. There was only 5 women in there, and the dean had invited them to dinner. And the question he asked was, "Why are you so special that you took up a man's spot?" And RBG's response was, "I wanted to be a better wife for my husband." Full sarcasm.
Nice.
So,
but I mean,
Love
she
that.
did not quit. She never gave up. No matter how many times she was slapped down, she got right back up. So did John Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
So did Elijah Cummings. I mean, just time after time, these leaders have fought for rights, and it doesn't happen the first time always. It doesn't happen the second time. It might not happen the third time, but you have to keep working.
It took the Civil Rights Act 54 days of debate. It was in the same position we are now. They had filibustered it. We've got the debate, but they can still filibuster cloture right now. But it was 54 days of them debating this bill on the floor with public pressure mounting. That is the opportunity we have right now. And for the senators like Collins, Murkowski, Romney, who kept saying they didn't come to us, they didn't debate, we need to pressure them. Then if you have issues with the bill, why aren't you over there right now? Because we know that they have reached out. We know Warnock has, we know Manchin has. So don't let them off the hook.
Yep. Well, I mean, this is the best case scenario, right? At this point, the best case scenario is that we slide into a very protracted battle with this bill. And that would make for some really interesting American democracy.
Well, and this also gives a chance to pressure senators of, especially if you have a Republican one, of why aren't we having more debates like this on the floor?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you letting the American people see both sides of the issue by having more of these debates? Because I can't remember the last time there was a debate like this. So
didn't Merkley say that yesterday? This is what the Senate's supposed to do?
Well, multiple of them have said this, but
do that?
I literally have not found when the last real debate like this was on the Senate floor. And that's a good, that's something we can easily push with, especially people like me and Lori who have such wonderful senators. Sarcasm. We want to see more debates. Yes, and Nick has Merkley. Yeah,
and Wyden.
We're not bitter about it.
I'm bitter. Diane has a good comment in the chat. She says, for months I've been hearing, if the voting rights bills don't pass, we'll lose our democracy. And is that not true? And I think that's been, sort of a flag for us. We know our democracy is at risk. Trump trampled every democratic norm that we had and some laws. And so when they are allowed to pass these voter suppression laws across the country, it places our democracy at risk. Absolutely. Does that mean we give up? No. Does that mean that we will never be a democracy? No.
And I don't think, and I absolutely believe our democracy at risk. Do I think it's in peril in 2022? Not quite. I think that's the tipping point. I think that is the test run to 2024. And then there was a question of, why did we wait till January to start this? And the reason is because this has been brought up 4 other times. Republicans blocked it. It was some very crazy maneuvering by Chuck Schumer that got us to this point. This is something that's actually not been done before, and it's called a message between the House. And there was a bill about NASA lands that had passed the House and the Senate, and they needed to basically get the same bill. And once you have 3 messages between chambers, the Senate can't stop debate. So the House stripped literally the entire language and replaced it with this bill and sent it over as a message to the House. This hasn't been done before. So kind of took a little while to go, hey, maybe this will work.
Well, and, Heidi says that people on social media has not been very patient about this. And of course not, because screaming in anger gets you more clicks and likes. I don't think it's hyperbole at all to say that our democracy is in danger. What we agree that is that no matter what happens tonight, we will not stop fighting. And we will continue. And
the vote's officially over.
Okay.
50-50. Someone just changed their vote I'm sure it was Schumer.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I guess we'll figure all that out.
For those wondering, Leader Schumer changed his vote to no for procedural purposes only. This is pretty common. So please don't go off on Schumer. Because as leader, it's his prerogative to do that, because when he is a no vote, it allows him to keep calling things up. So
definitely help folks in the social spaces understand that before everybody starts taking the knives out.
That's great.
I think there is every reason to worry about democracy, and we have all kinds of reasons to hope too. And with the hope comes from what we did in 2018, what we did in 2020. The fact that we've been so concerned about the gerrymandering, but the gerrymandering the maps actually don't look nearly as bad as everybody thought that they were going to be. So that's a really good thing that might help us have a better chance of either keeping the House by a slim margin or maybe just not losing as many seats.
At least, yes, the VP can push it to 51, but we want Schumer to vote no, because that gives him options to call it back up again. So this is purely procedural, and which he can do as leader of the Senate.
As Lori says, we obsess about this shit, so you don't have to. So, okay. Well, it's turn of the hour. We can all retreat to C-SPAN and or whatever our news channel is.
Or turn into Twitter tomorrow morning to find out what happened.
I'm just going to say one more thing on the maps. I know some of the maps are bad. There's a lot of lawsuits. You know, Ohio has already done theirs. It's going to Wisconsin Supreme Court. It's going to North Carolina Supreme Court. And New York is going to make us up a couple of seats because they have a super majority and they're going to gerrymander the fuck out of the Republicans as payback. So I'm morally opposed to gerrymander, but in this case, I say, go gerrymander.
Yeah. No, I just meant in the aggregate. Sorry for all of you in unfortunate district situations. But yes. So let's call it here, and then we will see everybody back on the democracy briefing. We'll go back to Monday next time. We switched it to Wednesday this week because of the MLK Day, but that wouldn't be next Monday. It's the following Monday. So we'll make sure everybody gets a reminder. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.